The Carter family kitchen was never just a place for cooking. It was a sanctuary of stories, a classroom of life lessons passed down through generations. Soft morning light filtered through lace curtains, illuminating the worn wooden table where Jasmine's grandmother, Eleanor, would sit with her well-worn leather-bound journal. 12-year-old Jasmine watched her grandmother with curious eyes, her notebook always nearby. Eleanor's hands, mapped with years of hard work and gentle care, would trace the edges of photographs and newspaper clippings, fragments of family history and community struggle. Not every battle is won in courtrooms or with loud voices, Eleanor would say, her voice a mix of wisdom and quiet determination. Sometimes change happens through understanding, patience, and unwavering hope. Those words became Jasmine's first lesson in justice. Her grandmother wasn't a lawyer or a judge, but a retired school counselor who had spent decades supporting families in their most challenging moments. Every story she shared was a testament to human resilience. Tales of students who overcame incredible obstacles, of families finding strength in unity. Her mother, Maya Carter, continued this legacy. A community counselor with a master's degree in social work, she approached every challenge with a combination of professional skill and deep empathy. Jasmine would often accompany her mother to community centers, watching her navigate complex social dynamics with grace and intelligence. On weekends, their home became a hub of community support. People would drop by seeking advice, comfort, or simply a listening ear. Jasmine learned early that problems were rarely black and white. Each situation was a complex tapestry of personal histories, systemic challenges, and individual hopes. Her father, Marcus Carter, a high school history teacher, added another layer to her understanding. He taught her about social movements, the power of education, and how individual actions could create meaningful change. Their dinner conversations were never mundane. They were explorations of history, current events, and the potential for progress. At school, Jasmine was different from her peers. While others were focused on typical teenage concerns, she was reading books about civil rights, studying landmark legal cases, and participating in debate clubs. Her teachers recognized her exceptional ability to see multiple perspectives and articulate complex ideas. During her 8th grade year, a pivotal moment crystallized her future path. A classmate was facing potential suspension over a misunderstanding that seemed rooted in cultural miscommunication. While other students took sides, Jasmine sought to understand the full context. She spoke with both the student and school administrators, helping facilitate a resolution that preserved the student's academic standing and maintained the school's integrity. Her principal, Mr. Rodriguez, pulled her aside after the incident. "You have a remarkable gift," he told her. "You don't just see problems, you see possibilities." Those words resonated deeply. Jasmine understood that justice wasn't about winning or losing, but about creating understanding and opportunity. Her future was taking shape, not as a distant dream, but as a tangible path she was already walking. By the time she entered high school, Jasmine knew her calling. She would become a bridge, someone who could navigate complex systems, give voice to the unheard, and transform challenges into opportunities for growth and understanding. The University of Illinois campus bustled with energy, but for Jasmine Carter, every step felt like a carefully calculated journey. Her scholarship was more than financial support. It was a lifeline, a promise she made to her family and herself. Mornings began before sunrise. While other students leisurely prepared for classes, Jasmine was already juggling multiple responsibilities. From 5:30 a.m. to 8:00 a.m., she worked as a morning barista at the campus coffee shop, her carefully pressed blazer a stark contrast to the casual morning attire of her fellow students. Her course load was intentionally challenging. Political science, legal studies, and sociology formed the core of her academic pursuit. Each class was an opportunity to understand systemic structures, to decode the intricate mechanisms that shaped society's opportunities and limitations. Professor Elizabeth Hartman's constitutional law class became a turning point. Unlike many of her peers who saw law as an abstract concept, Jasmine approached each case study as a living, breathing narrative of human experience. Her papers didn't just analyze legal precedents, they explored the human stories behind each landmark decision. "Your perspective is refreshing," Professor Hartman told her after a particularly compelling presentation on civil rights legislation. "You're not just studying law, you're understanding its human dimensions." But academic excellence came with its own set of challenges. The predominantly white institution wasn't always welcoming. Subtle comments, overlooked contributions, and the unspoken expectation to represent an entire community weighed heavily. Jasmine learned to navigate these spaces with a combination of grace and strategic resilience. Her support network became crucial. The Black Student Union became more than a club. It was a sanctuary. Here, she found peers who understood the delicate balance of excelling academically while maintaining cultural identity. Late-night study sessions transformed into powerful discussions about representation, opportunity, and social change. Financial constraints meant Jasmine couldn't afford traditional internships. Instead, she created her own opportunities. She volunteered at local community legal clinics, offering administrative support and gradually building practical experience. These experiences were worth more than any paid internship. They provided real-world insights into the legal system's complexities. A breakthrough came during her junior year. The university's debate team noticed her exceptional skills. Despite initial hesitations about additional commitments, Jasmine recognized the opportunity for growth. Her debate performances weren't just competitions, they were platforms to discuss critical social issues. Her most significant challenge arrived unexpectedly. The proposed campus policy that would potentially limit support for first-generation students became a catalyst for her leadership. Instead of simply protesting, Jasmine developed a comprehensive proposal. She conducted research, gathered student testimonials, and presented a nuanced alternative that addressed both administrative concerns and student needs. The administration was impressed. What started as a potential conflict became a collaborative conversation about institutional support and student success. Mentor Judge Richard Thompson, who had been watching her progress, saw something special. During a campus lecture series, he approached Jasmine after her presentation. "You're not just preparing for a career," he told her. "You're preparing to create systemic change." His words became a prophecy. Jasmine wasn't just surviving the academic system. She was learning to transform it, one carefully considered step at a time. By her senior year, she had become more than a student. She was a strategist, a voice for those often overlooked, and a beacon of hope for what dedicated, compassionate leadership could achieve. The small civil rights organization occupied a modest office in downtown Chicago, tucked between a community center and a neighborhood bakery. For Jasmine Carter, it was nothing like the gleaming corporate law firms her classmates had pursued. Here, impact was measured not in billable hours, but in lives touched and systems challenged. Her first week was a whirlwind of orientation, case files, and a constant stream of community stories that demanded attention. Sandra Rodriguez, the organization's senior attorney, became her first professional mentor. With silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing, Sandra had been fighting systemic inequalities for over 3 decades. "This work isn't about winning," Sandra would say, spreading case files across her worn oak desk. "It's about creating visibility for those the system wants to keep invisible." Jasmine's initial assignment seemed deceptively simple: review a series of disciplinary cases from local schools. What she discovered was a complex web of institutional practices that disproportionately impacted students from marginalized communities. One case caught her attention immediately. Marcus Williams, a 16-year-old student with exceptional academic potential, faced a potential year-long suspension for an incident that seemed more like a misunderstanding than a serious violation. The school's documentation was meticulously crafted, each word carefully chosen to paint Marcus as a potential troublemaker. Digging deeper, Jasmine discovered a pattern. Marcus was an advanced placement student, active in community service, and had no previous disciplinary record. The incident, A heated classroom discussion about social inequalities seemed more like an opportunity for learning than punishment. Her investigation went beyond the surface. She interviewed Marcus, his teachers, and family members. She requested comprehensive school records, communications logs, and spoke with independent educational consultants. Each conversation revealed layers of context that the school's initial report had conveniently overlooked. The challenge wasn't just about Marcus. It was about a systemic approach that often criminalized young students of color, treating normal adolescent challenges as serious infractions. Jasmine began to see the disciplinary process as a critical intersection of education, social justice, and institutional accountability. Late nights became her norm. While her peers were exploring Chicago's vibrant social scene, Jasmine was surrounded by case files, legal journals, and cups of strong coffee. Her mother would sometimes bring dinner to the office, sitting quietly and offering support without interrupting her concentration. A breakthrough came through an unexpected connection. One of Marcus's teachers, Ms. Elena Rodriguez, had been documenting similar patterns of disciplinary inconsistencies. Her meticulously kept records provided crucial evidence that transformed the case from an individual challenge to a potential systemic review. Sandra watched Jasmine's approach with growing respect. "You're not just fighting a case," she told her one evening. "You're building a narrative of accountability." The organization's legal strategy began to take shape. Instead of simply challenging Marcus's suspension, they were preparing to challenge the entire disciplinary framework. It wasn't about proving Marcus's innocence, but about exposing the inherent biases in institutional decision-making. As the case gained momentum, Jasmine realized her work was about more than legal victories. It was about creating spaces for understanding, for growth, and for recognizing the potential in every young person. Her first major professional challenge was becoming something more, a platform for meaningful systemic change. The Cook County Courthouse stood like a monument to institutional history, its marble columns and heavy wooden doors holding decades of legal narratives. Jasmine Carter arrived early, her navy blue suit crisp, her briefcase meticulously organized with carefully prepared documentation. Marcus Williams sat beside her, a mixture of nervous energy and quiet determination. At 16, he had already experienced more systemic challenges than many adults. His mother, Patricia, squeezed his hand, a silent gesture of support that spoke volumes. Judge Robert Hamilton's reputation preceded him. A veteran of the judicial system with over 30 years of experience, he was known for his no-nonsense approach and traditional interpretations of institutional policies. Colleagues described him as fair but uncompromising, a judge who valued procedural integrity above emotional narratives. As Jasmine prepared her arguments, she knew this was more than a typical disciplinary hearing. It was an opportunity to challenge deeply ingrained institutional practices that often marginalized students of color. The courtroom had a hushed anticipation. When Judge Hamilton entered, the room seemed to collectively straighten. His glasses perched on the edge of his nose, his silver hair neatly combed. He exuded an air of scholarly authority. "Miss Carter," he began, his voice carrying a precise, measured tone, "I've reviewed your motion. Explain to me why this case requires such extraordinary intervention." Jasmine's response was calculated and calm. Instead of launching into a legal argument, she began with context. She shared Marcus's academic record, his community involvement, and the specific circumstances of the classroom incident that led to the potential suspension. "Your Honor," she said, "this isn't just about one student. This is about understanding the context of classroom interactions, about creating educational environments that encourage critical thinking and respectful dialogue." Judge Hamilton's initial skepticism was palpable. His eyebrows raised slightly, his fingers drumming a subtle rhythm on the bench. But something in Jasmine's approach was different. She wasn't confrontational. She was explanatory. She presented evidence that showed a pattern of disciplinary actions that seemed disproportionately applied. Comparative data, expert testimonies, and carefully documented incidents painted a nuanced picture of institutional bias. Unexpectedly, Judge Hamilton began asking probing questions, not challenges, but genuine inquiries. "Ms. Carter, help me understand the broader context of these disciplinary practices," he said at one point, leaning forward with genuine interest. Marcus, initially tense, began to relax. His mother watched in quiet amazement as Jasmine navigated the complex legal terrain with a combination of respect, intelligence, and genuine passion for understanding. The hearing wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was becoming a conversation about education, institutional responsibility, and the potential for systemic growth. As lunch approached, Judge Hamilton called for a brief recess. His final words before the break were unexpected. "Ms. Carter, your approach is refreshingly comprehensive. Let's continue this discussion." For Jasmine, it was more than a potential legal victory. It was a moment of genuine communication, a bridge between institutional tradition and progressive understanding. The day was proving that true progress happens not through confrontation, but through thoughtful, persistent dialogue. The small apartment became more than just living space. It was Jasmine's command center, research hub, and occasional refuge. Sticky notes covered her living room wall, a complex map of Marcus Williams' case, interconnected with legal references, personal testimonies, and potential strategies. 3 months into the case, the lines between professional commitment and personal sacrifice began to blur. Her phone would ring at midnight, Sandra from the organization checking in, Marcus's mother seeking updates, expert witnesses sharing new perspectives. Sleep became a luxury, professional passion her primary fuel. Her mother noticed the change first. During a rare Sunday dinner, Maya Carter watched her daughter. Dark circles under her eyes, a half-eaten meal growing cold, legal briefs spread across the kitchen table. "Jasmine," she said quietly, "passion is important, but so is your well-being." The advice went partially heard. Jasmine's dedication had always been her strength, but now it was becoming a potential vulnerability. Her personal relationships suffered. Her longtime boyfriend, Michael, a software engineer, was growing increasingly frustrated with her unpredictable schedule. "I barely see you anymore," Michael had said during their last conversation. "This case is consuming everything." But for Jasmine, this wasn't just a case. It represented something larger. A chance to challenge systemic inequalities that had impacted generations. Each document she reviewed, each testimony she analyzed, felt like a piece of a much larger puzzle of social justice. Her research revealed deeper complexities. The disciplinary system wasn't just about Marcus. It was about an institutional approach that often criminalized young students of color. Every late night, every missed social event, every personal sacrifice felt justified by the potential for meaningful change. The organization recognized her commitment. Sandra began giving her more significant responsibilities, seeing her not just as a young lawyer, but as a potential leader in civil rights advocacy. "You're building more than a legal strategy," Sandra would tell her. "You're creating a blueprint for institutional change." Financial pressures added another layer of complexity. Her modest salary barely covered living expenses. Some months, she would help her parents with bills, cutting into her already tight budget. Professional development workshops, additional legal resources, these became carefully calculated expenses. A breakthrough came unexpectedly. An independent educational researcher, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, reached out with comprehensive data that could strengthen their case. Their late-night video calls became strategy sessions that went beyond traditional legal preparation. Her support network became crucial. The Black Lawyers Association provided mentorship, her university alumni network offered guidance, and her family remained her emotional anchor. They understood her drive, even when they worried about her intense dedication. Judge Thompson, her old mentor, sent her a handwritten note. "Remember," he wrote, "true change is a marathon, not a sprint. Take care of yourself as carefully as you take care of your cases." The advice resonated. Jasmine began implementing small self-care routines, early morning yoga, scheduled breaks, weekly dinners with her family. These weren't concessions but strategic decisions to maintain her effectiveness. As the Marcus Williams case approached its critical phase, Jasmine understood that her personal journey was intrinsically linked to her professional mission. She wasn't just fighting a legal battle. She was challenging a system, one careful, deliberate step at a time. The Chicago Public Library's archives room felt like a time capsule of institutional memory. Rows of meticulously organized file cabinets stretched before Jasmine, each drawer potentially holding the key to her investigation. She had been granted special access, a testament to her growing reputation for thorough, responsible research. Marcus Williams' case had become more than a single disciplinary hearing. It was now a comprehensive examination of systemic educational practices. Jasmine's hypothesis was bold. The disciplinary system wasn't just flawed. It was strategically designed to marginalize certain student populations. Her breakthrough began with an overlooked document. Tucked between two unremarkable school board reports, a spreadsheet caught her attention. At first glance, it seemed like routine administrative data. But Jasmine's trained eye saw patterns that others had missed. Comparative disciplinary data spanning 5 years revealed a disturbing trend. Students from specific neighborhoods, predominantly communities of color, were consistently receiving more severe disciplinary actions for similar infractions compared to students from more affluent areas. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the educational researcher who had been collaborating with Jasmine, confirmed the significance. This isn't just coincidence, she explained during a late-night video call. These numbers represent systemic bias encoded into institutional practices. The evidence required meticulous corroboration. Jasmine began mapping each data point, creating visual representations that told a story beyond raw numbers. She interviewed current and former students, collected personal accounts, and cross-referenced institutional records. An unexpected ally emerged, a retired school administrator named Robert Chen. Disillusioned with the system he had once served, he provided insider perspectives that added depth to Jasmine's research. The policies aren't always written with intentional discrimination, Chen revealed during their meeting, but they're implemented in ways that perpetuate existing social inequalities. It's death by 1,000 administrative cuts. Each piece of evidence brought new complexity. It wasn't about proving individual misconduct, but exposing systemic patterns that shaped educational experiences. Jasmine's approach transformed the case from a personal legal challenge to a potential catalyst for broader institutional review. Sandra Rodriguez, her mentor at the civil rights organization, recognized the significance. "You're not just challenging a suspension," she told Jasmine. "You're creating a framework for institutional accountability." The documentation became a carefully constructed narrative. Spreadsheets, personal testimonies, administrative records, each element meticulously organized to tell a comprehensive story of systemic challenges. Judge Hamilton's initial skepticism began to shift. During a preliminary hearing, his questions revealed genuine curiosity. "Ms. Carter," he said, reviewing her documentation, "help me understand how these patterns developed." It was more than a legal strategy. It was an opportunity for institutional learning, for creating pathways of understanding that could transform educational practices. Marcus Williams sat at the center of this broader narrative. No longer just a student facing suspension, he had become a symbol of resilience, of the potential for systemic change when individual stories are carefully, respectfully told. As the investigation progressed, Jasmine understood that her work extended far beyond this single case. She was documenting a critical moment of institutional reflection, creating a blueprint for more equitable educational practices. The breakthrough wasn't just about winning. It was about creating a pathway for meaningful, sustainable change. The courtroom felt different on the final day of the hearing. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Marcus Williams sat between his mother and Jasmine, a quiet strength replacing his earlier nervousness. Judge Hamilton's ruling came with unexpected depth. Instead of a simple decision about a single suspension, he delivered a comprehensive assessment of the disciplinary system's structural challenges. His words carried the weight of institutional reflection. "This case is not about one student," Judge Hamilton stated, his voice clear and measured. "It's about understanding how our educational systems can inadvertently create barriers to student success." The decision was groundbreaking. Marcus's suspension was completely overturned, but more importantly, the ruling mandated a comprehensive review of the school district's disciplinary practices. Independent consultants would be brought in to assess and redesign existing policies, with a focus on creating more equitable, supportive approaches. Local media picked up the story. What could have been a narrow legal victory became a catalyst for broader conversations about educational equity. Marcus became an unexpected spokesperson, speaking at community meetings and educational conferences about the importance of understanding and support in schools. Jasmine's organization saw immediate impact. Calls began flooding in from parents, educators, and community leaders seeking guidance. The case had exposed a system that many had suspected was broken, but few had successfully challenged. Sandra Rodriguez recognized the moment's significance. "This is more than a legal victory," she told Jasmine during a celebration dinner. "You've created a template for systemic change." The ripple effects extended beyond the courtroom. Local schools began reviewing their disciplinary policies. Teacher training programs started incorporating modules about cultural understanding and equitable support. Marcus received multiple scholarship offers, his experience transforming from a potential setback to a platform for opportunity. Unexpected support came from various quarters. Judge Hamilton, once seen as a traditional, potentially resistant figure, became an advocate for institutional review. He began speaking at judicial conferences about the importance of understanding systemic biases. Jasmine's approach became a model for other young lawyers. Her method wasn't about confrontation, but about creating understanding. She showed that systemic change could happen through careful research, respectful dialogue, and a commitment to seeing the humanity in every situation. The organization expanded its educational equity program. Jasmine worked with a team to develop resources for schools, creating guidelines for more supportive disciplinary approaches. Workshops, training sessions, and comprehensive policy recommendations became their new focus. Marcus's family became active partners in this broader mission. Patricia Williams, once worried about her son's future, now spoke at community events about the power of persistence and collective action. 1 year after the initial hearing, the impact was clear. Suspension rates had decreased. Schools were implementing more supportive intervention strategies. Students who might have previously been pushed out of educational systems were now finding pathways to success. For Jasmine, the victory was never about personal achievement. It was about creating possibilities for Marcus, for other students, for an entire educational ecosystem. During a quiet moment with her family, her grandmother's words echoed. "Change happens through understanding, patience, and unwavering hope." Jasmine had turned that hope into action. 5 years after the Marcus Williams case, Jasmine Carter's world had transformed. What began as a single legal challenge had blossomed into a comprehensive approach to educational and social justice. The Center for Equitable Education, an organization she co-founded, occupied a renovated community building in Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood. It was more than an office. It was a beacon of hope for students, families, and educators seeking meaningful support. Her mentorship program had become a national model. Each year, 20 young lawyers and educators were selected for an intensive program that combined legal training with community engagement. They didn't just learn about systems, they learned how to transform them. Marcus Williams, now a junior in college studying social policy, worked part-time at the center. His personal experience had become a powerful tool for understanding and change. He developed programs connecting students with legal resources, turning his past challenge into a platform for others. Judge Hamilton, now retired, had become an unexpected ally. He spoke at the center's training sessions, sharing insights about institutional change from his decades of judicial experience. Their relationship had evolved from a formal legal interaction to a genuine collaboration. Jasmine's approach had caught national attention. Educational institutions, policymakers, and civil rights organizations sought her guidance. She balanced speaking engagements with hands-on work, never losing sight of the individual stories behind systemic challenges. Her personal life had found a similar balance. Michael, her partner, now worked alongside her, developing technological solutions to support educational equity. They had found a shared passion that strengthened both their professional and personal connection. The center's work extended beyond legal interventions. They developed comprehensive support programs that addressed multiple aspects of student success: mentorship networks, legal support services, educational resource programs, community engagement initiatives. A breakthrough came with a national policy recommendation. Jasmine's team had compiled years of research, creating a comprehensive framework for more supportive, equitable educational practices. Major school districts began adopting their recommendations. Her mother, Maya, saw the transformation with quiet pride. The young woman who had once spread case files across the family kitchen table had become a national voice for educational justice. During a national conference, Jasmine reflected on her journey. "This isn't about winning legal battles," she told a room of educators and activists. "It's about creating systems that see the potential in every student." Her grandmother's journal, now a cherished family heirloom, sat in her office. The lessons of patience, understanding, and hope that Eleanor had shared years ago had become a living legacy. As the sun set over the Chicago skyline, Jasmine looked out over the center. Students from diverse backgrounds worked together, shared stories, and discovered their potential. Each of them represented a possibility, a chance for systemic change, one individual at a time. The journey that began with a single case had become a movement. Justice wasn't just about legal victories. It was about creating pathways of understanding, support, and hope.